In 1994, a 13-year-old girl walked out of her house in Arizona and simply never came back. For 30 years, investigators feared the worst. Then they found her. And the truth was something no one saw coming. Before we get into this one, drop a comment right now. After watching this story, do you think Christina did the right thing by disappearing? Or do you think she owed her family and investigators an explanation sooner? Let me know below. I read every single one. Star Valley, Arizona, 1994. It's a small, quiet community tucked into the mountains of Gila County. The kind of place where everybody knows everybody, where kids ride horses, and the pace of life feels worlds away from any city. For most families there, it's a safe place to grow up. But on the morning of May 15th, 1994, a 13-year-old girl named Christina Marie Plante, who most people called Tina, got up, told the people around her she was heading to a nearby horse stable, and walked out the front door. She never arrived at that stable. She never came home. When her family realized she hadn't returned, they did what any frightened family would do. They called for help. And the moment law enforcement got involved, the fear set in fast. Because when a young girl disappears with no warning, no note, and no explanation, the mind goes to dark places very quickly. The case was classified as missing and endangered under suspicious circumstances. That phrase, suspicious circumstances, carries real weight. It signals that investigators aren't treating this as a simple runaway case. It means something may have happened to this child, in something criminal, something violent. And for the people in Star Valley, the question hanging over everything was, where is Tina? What followed was an extensive search. Local authorities combed the area around Star Valley. Tips were followed up. People were interviewed. The horse stable she supposedly was heading to, nothing. No one had seen her. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. And as time passed, the fear only deepened. Missing children cases that go cold quickly are the ones investigators lose sleep over. The longer a child is gone without a trace, the worse the possibilities become. Early on, there was genuine concern that Tina had been abducted. A 13-year-old disappearing in broad daylight, leaving no obvious trail. The tracks with the kind of cases where someone intervened and where she didn't leave of her own free will. But those fears were never confirmed, and that's the thing about this case. There was never a break. No body, no evidence of foul play, no suspect, just silence. Eventually, the investigation slowed. Resources shifted. The case went cold. And Christina Tina Marie Plante became one of the countless names stored in a file, waiting for answers that never came. For the next 3 decades, her family and the investigators who worked her case lived with that uncertainty. That terrible, unresolved question. What happened to Tina? Decades passed. And then something shifted. Cold case units have become increasingly sophisticated in recent years. Where investigators in the 1990s were limited to what they could physically find and who they could physically question. Yet modern cold case teams have access to entirely different tools. Social media, public records databases, digital footprints that people leave behind just by living their lives, property records, professional licenses, marriage certificates, voter registrations. Gila County's cold case team decided to take another look at the Plante case. And this time, using those modern tools, they started to find something. A thread, a trail. It led them more than 1,100 miles away, all the way to Springfield, Missouri. And when they followed it to its end, what they found wasn't a crime scene. It wasn't a grave. It was a woman, 45 years old, married, a mother of 3 grown sons, working a professional job, living in a 5-bedroom home. Her name, at least the name she'd been living under, was different now. But her original identity was Christina Marie Plante, the 13-year-old girl who vanished from Star Valley, Arizona in 1994. She had been alive the entire time. Let that settle for a moment. For 30 years, while investigators feared she'd been abducted or worse, while her case sat in a cold case file, Tina had been building an entirely new life in Missouri. According to the Daily Mail, which broke this story after she was identified, Plante married as a teenager. She and her husband, Sean Holland, have been together for nearly 3 decades. They married in 1998. She raised 3 sons with him. And she didn't just survive, she thrived. She earned a psychology degree from Missouri State University. She works in a supervisory role for a Springfield-based firm that investigates insurance fraud, a private investigations company. She lives in a 5-bedroom home with her husband, who works as a software engineering manager. By any measure, she built a stable, successful, respectable life. Sean Holland spoke briefly to the Daily Mail after his wife was identified. He said she had shared her story with him before they married in 1998. He knew who she was and where she had come from. But he declined to discuss the details publicly, and he said his wife had been processing the renewed attention that came with being identified. That word, processing, tells you a lot. Whatever happened in May of 1994, whatever caused a 13-year-old girl to walk away from her entire life and never look back, it wasn't simple. And 30 years later, having that past suddenly resurface has not been easy. Here's where the story gets complicated. The breach because while the case is now resolved, while Tina is alive and safe, there are still real questions that haven't been fully answered. Gila County Sheriff's Office. Chief Deputy Jim Lottie spoke to the Daily Mail about the investigation. He confirmed that Plante has been in contact with authorities, but that she has been reluctant to go into specifics. She acknowledged running away. She indicated she had contact with another family member at the time, but she has not explained who she was with when she left. She hasn't explained how she managed to get from Star Valley, Arizona, all the way out of state at 13 years old. That's not nothing. A child that age doesn't typically vanish across state lines without some kind of help. Cold case investigator Captain Jamie Garrett, who was part of the team that identified Plante, it spoke to News Nation about the moment she made contact. Garrett described being genuinely stunned. In her own words, she was dumbfounded. She told Plante directly, "We were under the impression that somebody kidnapped you. It was deemed a criminal offense." And Plante's acknowledgement that she ran away raised an immediate follow-up question, the one Garrett and everyone else is still sitting with. How? How does a 13-year-old leave a small mountain town in Arizona, cross state lines, and completely disappear without anyone finding her for 30 years? That question remains unanswered. And authorities say Plante has chosen not to fill in those blanks. Now let's step back for a second because there's a lot of nuance here. Tina was a child when she left, and whatever her home life was like in Star Valley, and we don't know the full picture, something drove her to make an extraordinary, drastic choice. She didn't just run away down the street. She disappeared entirely, crossed state lines, built a new identity, stayed hidden for 30 years. That level of commitment to disappearing doesn't usually come from a happy home. Captain Garrett, when reflecting on the case, put it this way: I guess she wasn't happy with where she was living and who she was living with, and she ran away. That's a measured human observation. It doesn't assign blame. It acknowledges that children run away for reasons, and that those reasons often involve pain. At the same time, investigators spent enormous resources on this case. It was classified as a criminal matter. Resources were devoted. Their families were left without answers. Cold case teams spent years looking for her. And the mystery of how she left, Mike, who helped her, if anyone, is something that still sits unresolved. There's also the question of what this means legally. Authorities say the case is now considered resolved. She was never declared dead, and running away in and of itself is not a crime. But if someone assisted a minor in crossing state lines to evade a missing persons investigation, that gets more complicated. None of that appears to be moving forward. For now, the official position is simple. The case is closed. Tina is alive. Here's the thing that makes this story unlike almost any other missing persons case you'll ever hear. In the true crime world, we are conditioned to brace for tragedy. And when a child goes missing and decades pass without answers, the resolution is almost never good. We prepare ourselves for the worst. And then this case flips the script entirely. The resolution here is a woman living a quiet, full life. 3 sons, a husband who loves her, a career, a home, a degree, nearly 30 years of a life that, by all accounts, is genuinely good. For the investigators who spent years fearing she was buried somewhere in the Arizona desert, there must be something almost surreal about that discovery. Relief mixed with something harder to name. Closure, maybe. But also a kind of strange reckoning. She was never the victim of a crime. She was a child who made an impossible choice. And somehow, against all odds, it worked out. Christina Tina Plante is now 45 years old. She lives in Springfield. It's Missouri. She has chosen to keep the details of her past private. And honestly, that is her right. Whether you think she owes anyone an explanation, whether you understand why she disappeared the way she did, whether you feel sympathy or frustration or something in between, this case is a reminder that missing person stories don't always end the way we expect. Sometimes the answer isn't a crime. Sometimes it's just a person trying to survive. Now, I know, Jake, I want to hear your take on this. Do you think Christina should have come forward sooner? Do you think the investigators deserve to know the full story of how she left? Or do you think, after 30 years, she's earned the right to keep her secrets? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If you want to see more cases like this one, stories that break the mold, cases with unexpected endings, make sure you're subscribed. I post every week. I'll see you in the next one.